In this edition of In Person, Mike Dees talks to the lyricist and music promoter Peter Foss about his 50 years working in London's Tin Pan Alley. Now living in Cornwall, Peter looks back over a career involving many of the world's finest writers and performers.
My guest was born in East London in 1929. He began playing piano at the age of 7, and on leaving school at 14, his head teacher recommended he pursue a career in music. Taking that advice, he went on to become one of the most respected and influential figures in Tin Pan Alley as a lyricist and music promoter to the stars. He is Penwith resident Peter Foss. Welcome, Peter.
Hello, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Your first job took you into the heart of London, to the top end of Charing Cross Road, Denmark Street, better known as Tin Pan Alley, the place where historically composers, publishers and players of popular music came together.
That's true. They used to stand around the street and all the song pluggers used to wait to pounce on them. The only way you could demonstrate a song was to sing it at the piano.
Who was the first star you met there?
Well, I met Charlie Chester when I was about 16, when he got demobbed, and he was with his manager called Charlie Murray. Frank Chacksfield was his musical director, and Charlie had an office at the top of Lawrence Wright building. And of course I used to see him, and he used to give me tickets to go to the Mile End Theatre, where he broadcast every Sunday was Stand Easy.
When you were 16, you formed a dance band with 3 pals.
That's right. And we used to play all round Ilford and Dagenham, Barking. And this was in the days before disco, when the only way people could have entertainment was to book a band for their dinners and their socials, and this is what we used to do.
Demobbed at 20, you returned to your old job at Lawrence Wright and became a song plugger.
In fact, I went into the professional department. They call it the professional department because it's where all the pros used to come to pick up professional copies of sheet music, and people like Dickie Valentine would come in and take a half a dozen of the new songs. I met Frankie Vaughan when he came to London. I think he was living in Leeds. He actually came in the office and he went into the back room and somebody played, and he actually impersonated Jolson. That was the first time I ever heard him sing.
Because he had big hits with Give Me the Moonlight, Give Me the Girl, and Green Door back in 55 and 56.
I then went to Robert Mellon Music Company and worked on Stranger on the Shore,
Acapulco,
which was Acapulco's hit, but we then had a vocal version because Bobby Mellon, who owned the company, he wrote the English lyric to Stranger on the Shore, and it was quite a beautiful song. And we had other hits.
The music scene was rapidly changing at that time. Ballad styles were going out, rock and roll was emerging. How did that affect the work of Tin Pan Alley and what you were doing?
Well, the sheet music still used to sell reasonably well. I mean, things like Release Me of Engelbert, Tom Jones' Green Grass of Home, various other big songs of the day which became standards. One of the big songs I had while I was there, it was number 1 for about 16 weeks, was called Que Sera, Whatever Will Be, Will Be. And we sold 1 million copies of sheet music of that. That was the last million seller.
That's impressive.
It was great.
Age 40, you were approached by the American Music Company to be their general manager.
We opened in Newman Street in London on January the 1st, 1970. I was 71, I think it was 1971. And I was there for 6 years, and I travelled the world. One of the big things we did, we handled the Beatles print, which everybody said the Beatles were finished, but the print was unbelievable. We ended up selling music for over 40 firms. I mean, people like Island Music and Chrysalis and Rondor. I mean, Rondor owned all the Carpenters material. I mean, one of the big companies was Burlington Music, which was a subsidiary of Decca Record Company. The reason they formed was because they used to take the B-sides of the records, and a lot of the B-sides became hits, like The Green Grass of Home and Release Me. It was amazing.
In 1973, in conjunction with Alan Randall, you compiled the complete book of George Formby songs. It was quite an undertaking. I've been looking at it, and it runs to about 200 pages, Peter.
Yes, it's an excellent book. Very briefly, Alan was approached by Len Beadle at ATV Music months before and said to Alan that if we could find somebody to impersonate Formby, we'd clean up. And Alan went home and practiced for 6 months, and he got the ukulele and his voice off. And of course he started to make LPs and start to broadcast, and George Formby's lady called Pat Howson, she phoned him and asked him to go and see her because she was so delighted with all the PRS she was getting.
George had died by this time.
Yes, yeah. And then she left Alan a garage full of material, which included his medals and his passports and all his variety performance and his father's things, because his father was a famous Edwardian comedian.
Around this time you had the first of several successful hit records as a songwriter. Then another mammoth project translating Pope John Paul II's Polish LP of religious songs into English.
Yeah,
that was ahead of his visit to Britain and Ireland.
This was a man called Bernard Kretzmer who ran Intersong at the time, and he gave me this LP and said would I like to do it, and I got literal translations of all the songs, and I sat down. I spent about 6 or 7 weeks doing this, and we printed the book, sold a couple of thousand when the Pope arrived, and then it faded away.
That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it was a big job.
You brought in with you the Vivian Ellis Jubilee Songbook. It's a beautiful piece of work.
He was a lovely man. He really was. They always referred to him as the poor man's Ivan Novello, which I suppose he was in a way, but he still wrote some beautiful things. I mean, one of his biggest things was Coronation Scott, which was a signature tune to Paul Temple. And then his biggest show was Bless the Bride, when you had lovely songs like My Bella Margarita and This Is My Lovely Day. He also wrote Spread a Little Happiness, which Sting made a big recording of when it was revived.
In 1991 you edited The Best of Mike Batt.
Well, there was another great songwriter, Mike Batt. I mean,
still is. He's behind
he is
Katie
fantastic.
Melua now.
He is such a driving force. I mean, one of his biggest songs in those days was Bright Eyes, and also A Winter's Tale, which David Essex recorded.
Another masterpiece publication I saw of yours was the special collection you did for Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Yeah, well, Gilbert's real name is Ray O'Sullivan. That's his real name, and of course it was the I think the brainchild of his manager at the time, Gordon Mills, who made him call himself Gilbert O'Sullivan, which was quite clever, really, play on words. But he wrote some wonderful things like Claire and Alone Again Naturally, Nothing Rhymed. He said to me, make sure that the music's right and I'll check all the lyrics, and this is what he did, and so we produced this beautiful book which sold very, very well.
You rewrote a lot of children's nursery rhymes and folk songs, the old standards. You had a lot of fun doing this, I
Yes,
gather.
it was terrific. Yeah, it was for 5-year-olds. Barry Turner, who arranged the music, he made sure that he got all the instruments in, whether they were playing the claves or whatever, Quite a good idea.
And Alvin Stardust performed some of these on children's television.
Did. One day we saw a hen. He did this on very early Sunday mornings. It was children's TV, and he used to ring me up and send me the cassettes, which I've still got at home. He was a good friend.
When you retired in 1993, you were honoured by your peers.
Yeah, I was very surprised to receive the Gold Badge of Merit for my services to the music industry. That they singled me out to give me a gold badge, but I was absolutely over the moon because it was a wonderful honour. I was given it with people like Norman Wisdom, Roy Castle, Elaine Page and Russ Conway, and John Nice, who published the Birdie Song. He was there as well. And there was Marion Montgomery and Laurie Holloway, her husband, and it was a wonderful day. We all got our badges, and it was tremendous.
You retired with Olive to West Cornwall, Penwith.
We used to come down on holiday to Pendine. My cousin had a cottage there, and she fell in love with it down here, and so when we had the opportunity, we came down here. I stayed on as a consultant for a couple of years with Warner Chappell, travel up, spend a couple of days up in London.
Looking at the scrapbook of your retirement party, along with the testimonials, letters and photographs amassed down the years, it's clear to me that many musical stars of the last 50 years owe much of their success to the creative talent of and behind-the-scenes promotion by you.
Well, there was lots of us doing that. I mean, I don't know how to answer that because I'm a bit embarrassed, but I don't know who said it. It could have been Vera Lynn. Where would these artists be without the popular song of the day? So it's really down to the hit songwriters like the Les Reeds and the Barry Masons, and there's so many of them.
Peter Foss, man of many musical talents, thank you.
In Person with Peter Foss was brought to you by Mike Dees and produced by Julian Rowe. It was a Hearsay production for Cornwall Online Radio.